The night sky above Earth held its usual calm. Stars blinked, unaware of the turmoil unfolding within human eyes. In a control room swarming with silent monitors, the James Webb Telescope transmitted numbers, coordinates, velocity, orbital decay. The data looked wrong, frightening. A hush fell as scientists leaned closer to screens. The identifier 3I/ATLAS glowed in white. That cold combination of letters and numbers suddenly carried weight beyond a routine catalog entry. It was an object, distant, drifting, but drifting differently. Someone's voice cracked. They repeated the calculations, twice. The numbers refused to straighten. The trajectory curved inexorably, downwards toward the red planet, Mars. Cold geometry, unyielding as fate. The conclusion hovered in the room like smoke. 3I/ATLAS was on what seemed to be a collision course with Mars. Within minutes, cameras flashed, phones buzzed. Observatory towers across the globe awakened. Radio telescopes in deserts, mountains, and seas awakened. Humanity had to verify, not guesses, not probabilities, certainty. The data came back consistent, brutal. Every calculation affirmed Mars was on a path toward an object bearing no compassion. On social media, hashtags bloomed like warning flags. Hashtag asteroid alert, hashtag Mars impact, hashtag 3IATLAS. Photos of telescopes, charts, swirling data, humanity's eyes wide, heart heavy. Fear doesn't wait for confirmation, it races ahead. World governments convened emergency sessions. Space agencies from continents gathered virtually. Voices taught. Should we attempt deflection? Could we destroy it? Or should we observe, record history, even if it ended in cosmic fire with no survivors on Mars? Some scientists argued compassionately, Mars was no threat to Earth. Why risk pushing fragments off into unknown space? Others spoke with grim pragmatism. If 3I/ATLAS were natural, simple rock, maybe safe to nudge. If anomalous, who knew what lay inside? Better not experiment. As debate raged, starlight betrayed a whisper. Spectroscopic readings surfaced anomalies. The light glinting off 3I/ATLAS did not match any known asteroid composition. Metals, yes. Rare alloys. Reflectivity too high for regular rock. Maybe hollow in part, maybe artificial. Maybe not what anyone imagined. A wave of dread passed through the room. If it was natural, it could still annihilate Mars. If it was artificial, the danger multiplied. What if destruction released deadly fragments, radiation, or worse? What if this was a probe or a vessel? Human voices trembled at even the suggestion. Still, time pressed. Trajectory simulations flickered across monitors. One after another, the projected paths converged. A direct intersection with Mars' northern hemisphere. Impactian, unavoidable, soon, within the year. When the world finally spoke, a press conference broadcast globally, faces on television looked pale. Officials spoke measured words, trying to convey calm. We do not yet fully understand the nature of 3I/ATLAS, they admitted. We are evaluating all options. We will share more information when we can. But the void between words carried weight. Spectators watching from bedrooms, cafes, offices felt a shared shiver. We had seen danger before, but not like this. Not certain, not imminent, not cosmic. Some laughed. Dismissive memes exploded. Just another asteroid, they said. Movie hype. Others sobbed quietly. Tears for Mars, for dreams of exploration, perhaps for what might be lost. Collective grief before destruction. In churches, mosques, temples, candles flickered, prayers rose, silence fell. Then came the first proposals. A fleet of unmanned interceptors, rockets loaded with explosives, nudge devices, lasers maybe. Some called for caution. We didn't know what 3I/ATLAS contained. Blow it to smithereens, and pieces might rain down unpredictably. Others said waiting equals death for Mars. The red planet's surface would shatter regardless, perhaps better to shape the trajectory now. Humanity weighed risk versus risk. The science councils argued until dawn. Calculations flickered, predictions updated. Every new data set demanded rethinking. Nothing was stable. Uncertainty ruled. Meanwhile, people on Earth watched Mars rise in the twilight sky. Children gazed, asking parents if aliens were real, if Mars would disappear. Parents struggled for words. What could they say? Maybe? We hope not? Nobody knows? Fear swelled in hushed households. In one mission room, a young astronomer, her hands shaking, voiced what many dared only whisper. If it hits, we lose more than rocks. We lose hope. We lose a chance. Others nodded, swallowing hard. Night after night, the same charts, shifting lines, red dots, trailing arcs. Telescopes tracked 3I/ATLAS relentlessly. Data poured in. Angular momentum, reflective intensity, unusual deflection, tiny but significant. No shaft of light beyond spectrograms. No sign of motion or rotation like conventional asteroids. A silent, stony void. The world waited. Political leaders prepared statements. Religious figures counseled calm. Scientists worked feverishly, but no decision came. No rocket launched, no deflection engaged. Fingers hovered over buttons. Fear held back action. Then, an international broadcast. We now believe 3I/ATLAS is not a standard asteroid. Its surface composition and reflectivity suggest a hollow or partially hollow interior. Perhaps structural cavities, unlikely natural. Gasps echoed. The announcement paused. This data is preliminary, the voice said, but it changes everything. Immediately, panic returned. If hollow, what if containing materials unknown to us? Toxic, radioactive, active. What if destroying it triggered release of exotic shards or radiation? Some experts warned of planetary contamination, some of cascading meteor showers across the solar system. Others urged swift elimination. Even if hazardous materials lay inside, better to vaporize it in deep space rather than risk it colliding with another body. Could a directed energy weapon do it? Should Earth's first interplanetary defense system be activated? Meanwhile, reporters flooded social media. Videos of Mars images overlaid with faint red overlays indicating impact zones, orbit paths, uncertain scars. People debated. Some wanted deflection at all costs. Others demanded full transparency. No secret weapons. Trust collapsed. In the midst of confusion, a decision finally crystallized. A multinational task force would attempt a controlled deflection using a kinetic impactor. A massive spacecraft designed to strike 3I/ATLAS at high velocity, nudging it slightly, enough for trajectory shift, not destruction. The spacecraft was readied under top secrecy, launch pads emptied of tourists. Engineers worked double shifts, propulsion systems charged. The world counted hours. No cheering crowds, just tense breaths, waiting for ignition. Ignition came. The rocket roared. Flames carved the sky. Cameras recorded the ascent, then waited. Trajectory unconfirmed, final velocity unknown. All eyes turned back to monitor rooms. Hours passed in silence, monitors flickered. Then, a blip. Weak signal return. Telemetry confirmed. Impactor released mid-course. Target rendezvous in 6 months. Calculations adjusted. If all went well, the deflection might tilt the path downward, causing 3I/ATLAS to miss Mars by thousands of kilometers, enough to avert crisis. Relief rippled through governments, then back into fear. It was still speculation. What if the impactor triggered fragmentation? What if pieces spread unpredictably? What if partial impact merely adjusted spin, causing tumbling, unpredictable drift? Danger remained. Months passed in tense vigil. 3I/ATLAS shimmered in telescope feeds, now with changed reflectivity where the impactor struck. A scar. Scientists exchanged theories. Data reanalyzed. Every angle scrutinized. Some optimism emerged. The orbital path had shifted, but not by much. Enough? Some said no. The world's mood wavered. Some celebrated. Others hunkered down. Preparations for Mars' impact, if inevitable, began. Policies drafted, disaster simulations run, evacuation plans. Though evacuation of Mars had been aspirational, the real impact would be loss of potential future, of human ambition, of hope. Then came the day the new orbit model was released. Silence at first, then a hush so deep it was audible through screens. The new projection still pointed toward Mars, but at a glancing angle, a grazing collision, not head-on. Could be surface scrape, could be atmospheric entry, could be a miss by just hundreds of kilometers. The margin of error enormous. An uneasy hope sparked. If the grazing angle held, maybe Mars would not be obliterated. Maybe a crater, maybe dust kicked up, maybe no major devastation, but nobody knew. Past cosmic events offered little certainty with analogs so few. Humanity exhaled, just a little. Confidence returned slowly, but fear lingered in shadows. Scientists cautioned patience, continued monitoring. Politicians tempered their pronouncements. Religious leaders called for unity. People resumed daily routines, though glances upward grew sharper. Then the unexpected. Spectrographs detected faint emission lines from 3I/ATLAS, volatile chemicals expanding slowly into space. Maybe gas, maybe outgassing. Perhaps the impactor had breached a thin shell, exposing volatile materials inside. Atmosphere? Ice? Something alien. That changed everything. If material was venting, albeit slowly, the object had an internal reservoir of gas, maybe more complex compounds. That sort of composition implied an origin not purely geological. The idea of a hollow shell grew stronger. An alien probe? Abandoned vessel? Cargo of something unknown? Cold dread returned with force. What if those gases were toxic? Radioactive? Reactive? What if when it grazed Mars it released those materials into the thin Martian atmosphere? Or worse, pushed particles outward across space, toward inner planets? Earth might not be safe after all. Scientists scrambled again. Simulations skyrocketed. Even grazing, the outflow could spread in a wide cone. Models showed possible trajectories intersecting Earth orbit months later. Titan, Europa, maybe even moons of Jupiter. No body safe. The risk extended. Public fear resurfaced. Memories of worst-case scenarios flooded social media. Doomsday hashtags renewed. Governments scrambled advisories. Stargazing apps removed Mars from visible listings. Schools canceled astronomy nights. It was easier to pretend Mars no longer existed than face the unknown. In one quiet control room, a woman stared at the feed. Tiny white speck drifting, venting gas like some ancient creature gasping for breath. She pressed her palm to the screen. "We might be the witnesses," she whispered, "or the hosts." As March approached, the expected date of closest approach, scientists announced another plan, a surveillance mission. A probe scheduled to intercept 3I/ATLAS, pass close, photograph, analyze the exhaust, sample if possible. It would not interact, only observe. Knowledge first, action later. That brought mixed reactions, relief from some, condemnation from others. "You want to flirt with danger?" one veteran astronomer railed. "What if we wake something sleeping?" Others argued humanity couldn't indefinitely hide from its own curiosity. To know is human. To observe is survival. The probe launched, silent, sleek, unmanned, cameras, spectrometers, gas samplers, particle detectors, echoes of humanity's desire to understand, even at risk. Weeks passed with nothing more than orbital logs. Then, signals began to surge. The probe had closed to within thousands of kilometers. Telemetry flooded screens. Data streams collapsed into graphs. Visual feeds glitched, then steadied. There it was, 3I/ATLAS, floating ominously against the black void, shedding thin threads of shimmering gas like a dying comet. The probe passed slowly, drifted in patterns to remain safe. Cameras captured the shell's curvature, irregular, not perfectly spherical. Cracks, seams, faint metallic glint under layers of dust. No rotating spin, a silent pilgrim moving across the cosmos. Scientists exchanged stunned messages. No sign of life, no engines, no deflector shields, no markings. Yet nothing resembled normal asteroid terrain. Was it craft, derelict, capsule, unknown storage vessel? They didn't know. They could only watch. Then came a reading that jolted every heart. A tiny spike of radiation beyond cosmic background emanating from within the core. Pulses, irregular but consistent. Not powerful, not deadly, yet measurable. That shell was not inert. Something slept inside. Panic waves rose again. Not fear of collision, but fear of awakening. What if the probe's proximity triggered something? That radiation might be dormant, but could it spread, mutate? Could it be viral, biological, a message, a beacon? Urgent debates. Shut it down. Pull the data offline. Contain the information. Hide it. Or share globally. Transparency could cause panic. Silence could bring suspicion. Trust fractured wide. Civilians noticed. Data leaks. Rumors of spaceship venting gas. Some whispered of alien life returning. Others feared government cover-ups. Martian doomsday gave way to alien apocalypse theories. Conspiracy brewed in every corner. Then the countdown began in earnest. Days until closest approach. Communities debated. Stock up water, wear masks. Would gas reach Earth? Could it poison Mars's thin atmosphere, seed unknown compounds? Predictions varied wildly. In private, the world's leading astrophysicists trembled, not from cosmic gravity or collision vectors, but from hubris, from the unknown, from the notion that humanity's first confirmed alien object might not bring wisdom, but chaos. On the final night before flyby, silence enveloped the planet, streets emptied, people gazed upward, eyes unblinking. Across continents, uncounted prayers floated, 1,000 tongues asking for mercy. Then, across millions of miles, the object passed. The impact never occurred. Instead, 3I/ATLAS grazed Mars, a whisper of a near miss. Instruments on Mars orbiters registered a faint tremor. Dust lifted, a silent scar etched on Martian soil. No explosion, no fire, no death. But that was not the end. The gas plume followed, trailing silently. Satellites recorded thin streams shifting outward, dispersing slowly. Radiation spikes dampened. The core quieted again. The shell drifted away, back into the void. Human scientists exhaled, uncertain. Relief mixed with dread. They had survived and witnessed. They had chosen curiosity over destruction. They had gambled that observation might yield knowledge, not horror. And they had won, for now. On Earth, people celebrated cautiously. The sky looked the same, night after night. Mars glowed faint, serene. Some believed disaster had been averted. Others whispered that real danger had just changed its shape. The probe returned more data in days that followed. Cracked shell, metallic composites unknown on Earth, gas contents rich in compounds alien to human chemistry, radiation signatures similar to distant pulsars, not natural asteroid radiation. No signs of life, no messages, no engines, nothing. Just a relic drifting alone. But that relic carried warning. That relic raised questions. Why was it on collision course? By chance or intent? Was it trial, accident, or message? Debates stirred in academic halls worldwide. Philosophers wondered if humanity was ready for silent encounters. Governments argued for future defense programs. Religious leaders asked if we were caretakers or intruders in a cosmos beyond understanding. Children born that year looked up at night skies differently. Not wonder, not dreams of conquest, but caution, respect, fear, maybe hope. Eyes remembering some things in space wait in silence, not to be disturbed. Years passed, and 3I/ATLAS drifted on, unseen by naked eye, recorded only in archived data. But Earth's people never forgot. The names lingered in memory. The emotions remained. Fear, awe, humility. Space was no longer a vacuum of peace. It was a vast stage of mystery. In dusty control rooms, aged scientists still argued, to destroy or to observe, to speak or to silence. They remembered the night the world held its breath, the night an alien wanderer almost struck Mars, and nearly struck humanity's hope. But above all, they remembered what they learned. Sometimes to survive is not to conquer. Sometimes to survive is to watch, to learn, to wonder, and to remember why we look up at stars in the first place. Decades later, the scar on Mars remained, a thin, crescent-shaped wound along the northern hemisphere, faint but undeniable. Every new rover captured glimpses of it, a reminder of the night the heavens almost reached down to shatter a planet. Dust storms had softened its edges, yet the mark persisted, defying erosion as if the planet itself wanted to remember. When the next generation of astronomers re-examined the data, they found anomalies hidden deep within the radiation readings, signals buried in the noise. At first, dismissed as interference. But when processed through new AI filters, a rhythm appeared. Not random, not cosmic background, intentional. A series of repeating pulses, weak but mathematical. Ratios consistent with prime numbers. Patterns nature rarely assembles by accident. No one wanted to believe it. To admit that perhaps 3I/ATLAS had not been merely a drifting relic, but a vessel transmitting something. Maybe a warning, maybe a farewell. When word leaked, panic simmered beneath fascination. The old fear returned, dressed in new certainty. By then, Mars had a small colony, not humans yet, but robotic harvesters and construction units preparing domes for the first settlers. When they detected traces of the gas still lingering in the upper atmosphere, alarms triggered once again. It wasn't toxic, it wasn't radioactive, it was something else. Chemical analysis returned impossible compounds, chains of carbon interlaced with metallic nanostructures. Some described it as a biotechnological mist, Neither alive nor dead, neither natural nor artificial. The first real suspicion dawned. What if 3I/ATLAS wasn't meant to destroy Mars at all, but to seed it? That word alone, seed, set off a storm of controversy. Some argued it was pseudoscience, romantic nonsense. Others whispered of panspermia, ancient builders, alien genetic experiments. The line between myth and physics blurred once more. Meanwhile, Mars began to change. Slowly, subtle increases in atmospheric density were detected, unexplainable by known factors. The temperature rose by a fraction of a degree. Dust storms shifted in color, faint tinges of blue lacing their edges. Scientists hesitated to publish these findings. The fear of ridicule mixed with dread of revelation. If 3I/ATLAS had indeed carried the building blocks of life, or something else, what did that mean for human presence on Mars? Were we colonizers or intruders in someone else's experiment? Years of silence followed. Humanity tried to move on. New missions launched, telescopes pointed elsewhere, seeking comfort in distance. But deep down, the question lingered. Was Mars changing because of us, or because of it? The James Webb Telescope, still functional decades beyond expectation, captured one final image before its systems began to fade. A faint glow near the outer edge of the solar system. Familiar coordinates. 3I/ATLAS, once again illuminated by reflected sunlight, drifting beyond Neptune's shadow. Except this time, it wasn't alone. Trailing behind it were dozens, perhaps hundreds, of smaller fragments, each moving in delicate formation. Not random debris, not gravitational clustering, organized motion, like spores following a parent seed through the dark. The image shocked the scientific world. People called it impossible, called it artifact, called it madness. But the data held steady. The fragments followed, perfectly aligned, as though responding to an invisible command. Governments buried the footage. Publicly, they claimed the light signatures were cosmic dust trails. Privately, they formed a task force, Project Sable. Its mission, to track the remnants of 3I/ATLAS indefinitely. For years, nothing more emerged. The fragments drifted quietly, their orbits stable, far beyond Pluto. But in the late 2090s, a signal returned. Faint, rhythmic, echoing the same pulse pattern first found in the Martian scar data. Prime numbers again. That was the moment the realization sank in. They had never left. They were waiting. Mars by then had human settlers. Cities under domes, dust-filtered skies glowing with faint red light. Children grew up playing in simulated gravity, their textbooks recalling the story of the near impact as history, an almost forgotten legend. But when seismic sensors began detecting rhythmic tremors beneath the scar, the colonists grew uneasy. The vibrations weren't caused by quakes or machinery. They followed the same interval as the pulses captured from deep space. It was as if the planet was responding. Robotic probes descended, boring through layers of dust to the point of impact. Beneath meters of regolith, they found a structure, not a crater. A smooth metallic curve, the same alloy sampled from 3I/ATLAS itself. The object wasn't gone. Part of it had fused into the Martian crust, hidden for decades, silent until now. And it was waking up. Transmission signals spiked across frequencies. Not noise, not random bursts. Language-like modulation. Something inside the buried fragment had reactivated, whether triggered by time, by human presence, or by the approach of its drifting counterparts in the outer system. No one could say. Within days, the signals synchronized with those detected by telescopes tracking the fragments, a network forming across millions of miles, Mars pulsing in harmony with the cold edges of the solar system. Panic swept through the colonies. Emergency evacuations were prepared, though there was nowhere truly safe to run. Earth debated cutting communications, fearing contamination, digital or otherwise. Some scientists pleaded to maintain contact. It's not an attack, they said. It's a conversation. But the data was impossible to decode. Complex waveforms layered atop one another, recursive signals looping endlessly. Then, the message changed. The rhythm slowed. The pulses aligned into intervals that matched an ancient astronomical ratio, the orbital resonance between Earth and Mars. It wasn't random. It was targeted. Every radio telescope on Earth caught it. Every colony antenna received it. The pattern repeated only once before stopping entirely, leaving a void more terrifying than any explosion. Across all channels, silence returned. For months afterward, nothing more came. The fragments beyond Neptune dispersed, drifting off into the void. Mars fell quiet again. Scientists labeled the incident a synchronized data anomaly, unwilling to face what it implied. But the colonists knew better. They felt the vibrations in their domes, faint but undeniable, as if something deep within Mars' crust still breathed. Years later, when terraforming began, engineers drilling deep for geothermal vents struck a hollow chamber. Inside was a cavity, circular, smooth, filled with dust, so fine it shimmered under artificial light. Embedded within the wall, symbols glowed faintly, patterns that mirrored the prime number sequence from the three I/ATLAS signal. Not letters, not words, code. No one could read it. No one dared to. The discovery was classified instantly. The chamber sealed, the workers sworn to secrecy. Officially, the dig had hit a magnetic anomaly. Unofficially, whispers spread that whatever had struck Mars had left behind more than metal. It had left behind a seed of intelligence. On Earth, decades later, the James Webb successor, named Horizon, detected something strange in the Kuiper Belt. One of the fragments from 3I/ATLAS had changed direction. It wasn't tumbling anymore. It was accelerating. Slowly, deliberately, impossibly. It was heading back toward the inner solar system. By then, humanity was scattered across planets, confident, powerful. But when the old codes reappeared across every communication band, prime numbers, rhythmic pulses, the same mathematical hum, the illusion of control crumbled. Children on Mars looked up through dome glass at the rust-red sky, unaware that far above them, something ancient and patient was returning. Scientists across Earth and Mars worked desperately to decode the signal before it arrived. What they found chilled them. Embedded within the waveform was a map, not of stars, but of DNA. The sequence matched nothing known, not human, not terrestrial, not random. It was an instruction. By the time they realized it, the fragment had already entered the orbit of the outer planets. Observatories captured its faint shimmer, unchanged, indifferent, timeless. Some called it the return of a messenger. Others called it judgment. The world held its breath again. But unlike the first time, no rockets launched, no impactors prepared. Humanity knew better. The last attempt to interfere had only deepened the mystery. This time, they would watch. As 3I/ATLAS drifted inward once more, its glow pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of something far older than Mars, older than Earth, older than memory itself. And somewhere beneath the Martian surface, in the sealed chamber where symbols slept, a soft vibration began to rise again, steady, rhythmic, familiar. The same pattern, the same prime numbers, a perfect echo across time and distance. And though no one on Earth or Mars could yet understand it, the message was clear. It had never been about collision. It had always been about contact.